A designer can be given anything as an input by the business. Please don't have the misconception that it always comes as a document only. It can be an existing design. It can be just an idea. It can be whatever you previously did. It can be anything. It is not always going to be only in one particular manner. So what do? You need to understand this quick model that if a business gives requirement, you need to ultimately deliver design. Correct? In this design, what did you understand? What do you actually deliver? Elements of the product, right? Your elements, screens connected with one another, right? All these elements, you're designing those interactions as well. Correct? All these are connected. There are a bunch of things, connected things which you are doing, taking these particular actions. Now, so your job is ultimately to this particular business goal into these things and explain it in such a way that you will impact business. That's what your job is. Now, as an ideal UX designer, what we do is, okay, you understood that we don't do it in a very linear manner. So what do? You need to understand this quick model. Understand that whatever the requirement of a business is, it is not always going to be only in one particular manner. We want to increase the average order value is not going to always come to you saying that that is the requirement, you do everything. This is my requirement documentation, you do everything. That's not how it always comes. It can be an existing design. It can be just an idea. It can be whatever you previously did. It can be anything. A designer can be given anything as an input by the business. Please don't have the misconception that it always comes as a document. It can come as a vague idea, or it can be just a meeting discussing about some features. It can be a finalized idea, or it can be a design which your product manager has already done and put it to you on your own table. They open Figma, they design it and they give it to you. That can also be an input. Okay? Anything can be an input. If that is input, then what do I do? Exactly. That's the point. You are the expert who will convert everything into a proper experience. They are not the experts who will do it. They designed a bunch of screens, but they do not know if at all those screens are going to have a great experience. They don't know about it. You are the one who has to figure that out. So whatever is given to you, we call it as ambiguity. Our input is always what we call as ambiguity. In other words, we call it as problem. What is a problem statement given to you? I call it as ambiguity because people misunderstand problem which is given to UX designer as a user problem. No, the problem given to you is the ambiguity which you need to solve, not just the user problem. A product manager might come with a bunch of screens already to you and say that I have solved the user's problem. But then what are you trying to solve? The ambiguity, the question, is this actually giving a great experience? I don't know. That is what you're trying to solve. Therefore, instead of calling it as a problem, which is misunderstood, I'm calling it as ambiguity. And the solution is basically what you're giving. What are you doing? You're giving clarity. So whatever is given to you as input as ambiguity, you turn it into clarity. This is what you do as a UX designer. Correct? As I said, these can be screens, documents, right? Ideas. And what do you turn them into? Better screens, better ideas, sketches, UI screens, anything. You have lesser clarity, you will turn it to more clarity. There is another term which is used for this word clarity. Any guesses what that is? Fidelity. This is where you hear this term, low fidelity design, high fidelity design. Have you heard these terms? Low fidelity doesn't mean that it's a wireframe. Low fidelity means we have less clarity about whether it works or not. It can be an existing product also. High fidelity, what does it mean? It has high clarity. You have high clarity that it works. Generally, a more sorted design, more sorted UI. Got it? So what you're trying to do is lesser fidelity, you're converting into higher fidelity. Clear, no? That you're trying to do. So anything can be input from a business. You're converting it into elements of the product. You will design all these interactions and the elements and all that stuff, but they can come at any stage and you can give them at any stage. But to do this very well, because what is the question? The question is, how do I make a better efficient process? How do I build that practice of doing in a much better manner efficiently? What we do is we have something, right, in our toolbox. And I'll define them in this particular manner. Obviously, you have the software tools. I'll put software tools like this. So you have software tools. You have this Figma, Motif, AI, ChatGPT. These are all software tools. You have this in your toolbox. Then methods. What are these methods? UX methods or UX frameworks. You have these methods. Your double diamonds, affinity mapping, crazy eight, how might we? You might have heard these things. Even if you've not heard, don't worry. There are a bunch of methods. What are they? They're examples of practices which have worked previously. There are these methods. What else do we have? I call this as spheres. Thinking spheres. Actually, methods, let me not make them round like this. Probably we'll put them as triangles. Okay, generally frameworks are like triangles. Now, there are these thinking spheres. What are these thinking spheres? They'll actually make you think in a much better manner than what you are doing now. So these thinking spheres make you focus on understanding the user or defining a problem or thinking better about ideas or presenting better prototypes or testing the prototypes. Empathize, define, ideate, prototype, test. What are these? What is this? Any guesses? Design thinking. Okay. It is misunderstood as design thinking is a linear process. You have to go from empathize to define to ideate to prototype to test. No. These are independent spheres which you can pick at any point of time. You should always empathize. You should always define. You should always ideate. You should always prototype. You're always testing. You can pick them as independent spheres at any part of your project, at any part of your practice. Got it? Put them as spheres. We'll understand the whole framework once I quickly finish it. And then in the end, what I'm going to call, there is something called as dimensions. There are two dimensions I told you, divergent and convergent dimensions. Okay, now look at the beauty. Beautiful little way. Everything, what you do as a UX designer can be explained through this. You want to convert ambiguity to clarity, correct? Be it screens, documents, ideas, you will make it better fidelity. You will add more fidelity. How do you do that? Using your toolbox. What do you have in your toolbox? You have very good knowledge from your UX methods and even principles, UX principles also. I'll add principles also here. You have principles and methods, which is basically like a reference material. You have this, right? They're teaching you good amount of stuff, the way to think, the way to see differently. On top of it, you basically have thinking spheres. So you can focus. Am I empathizing the user very well? Am I defining the problem very well? Am I ideating very well? Am I prototyping this and making this very well? Am I testing this enough very well? You have these spheres, which will keep bringing. And then you have dimensions. I want to ideate, but I want to divergently ideate. I want to bring in more ideas, removing the constraints. I want to ideate, but I want to convergently ideate. I want to bring the constraints and then now want to come out to that one single idea which I want to select right now. Right? The thing is, you get an existing screen. You have to make it as a better screen. Then how do you devise your own UX process basis that particular situation? It can happen that the screen has this much amount of clarity, but you don't know whether this experience is going to work or not. Therefore, you take that and you want to go and empathize the user in a much better manner. You want to make the idea much better. You want to make a revised screen of it and make a better prototype. You want to test it with users. You want to do this in a tool called Figma and get the ideas through ChatGPT. You want to create a North Star version, which is divergent, and then current constraints, understanding your developers, or let us say, understanding that you have only 2 days time, that you make those final 2 screens which you will deliver. And for that, you will use UX principles as lenses, and you have multiple methodologies. You want to ideate better, you use something like a crazy 8 as a technique. That's it. This summarizes how you devise your own UX process.